Jour online workshops designed to teach you the Color de Jour technique from the comfort of your home, office, or wherever you may be. Today we are going to do a dramatic glam. We're going to call this look Mint Chocolate, and I'm going to introduce some new highlighting techniques to you. So keep watching. First, I like to hydrate my client's skin, so we are going to start off with Color de Jour Prime and Set Spray. I use this pretty much on every single client. I love how it hydrates the skin, and we're just going to spray it all over. And you can spray the neck a little bit as well, because we carry the product down to the neck, so it can blend in nicely to the chest. Next, we'll be using Color de Jour Brush 117, and we're just going to evenly distribute the product all over. Just glide that product in so it's not sitting directly on the skin. Even on the eyelids, just pushing that product in. We're going to use Makeup Forever Hydra Booster Step 1 Primer. I really love this primer because it gives a nice glow to the skin. And if the skin is super dry, it just hydrates that skin and allows the makeup to really soak in and not sit right on top. So we're going to use that same brush and we're just going to apply this all over, especially under the eyes, because that is where we apply a lot of powder. So you want to make sure that under eye area is super hydrated. So when you do apply the powder, it doesn't sit right on top, it soaks in a little bit. If you are really dry under your eyes, you can definitely pick up a vitamin E oil. And we're going to take the same primer and just drag it down underneath the skin, down to the neck. And whenever you're applying primers, just make sure it's not too thick sitting on the skin, because if it is, that's how the foundation is going to apply. And you want to make sure that it's just being pushed into that skin. That's going to give you that flawless application. For any oily areas, we're going to use Item Light Sauce, and this is Balancing Gel Moisturizer for oily and combo skin. And I like to really concentrate this in the T-zone area. And then of course I drag the rest of the product out to the perimeter of the face. And I don't like to go under the eyes with this product because I need that area to stay hydrated. So this is typically where oils show up. So we just want to press that product in around the nose, on the forehead, chin, above that cupid's bow. And then whatever's left, we're just going to drag to the perimeter. For my last step of the priming routine, I'm going to use e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. And I really love this primer because it not only smooths out the surface of the skin, but it also allows the makeup to adhere well to the skin. So I'm going to pick up a wedge sponge so I can glide it over the skin. Underneath the eyes. And it's important not to continue to glide this product out, because if you do, I just feel like it'll start changing the texture of it. So we just want to make sure that it's nice and smooth. And once we glide it in, we move on to another area. Press it in underneath the eyes. You want to let that dry a little bit before you apply any foundation. And the look that we're doing today is a dramatic, very glam eye. So I'm going to save the skin for last. I'm actually going to do eyes first today, which is very rare, but I want to make sure that the skin application stays clean and that my eye application is super neat. So we're going to start with the eyes. But before we start with the eyeshadow application, I'm going to go ahead and just mold the brows down. We're just going to get it into the spoolie, like so. And just make sure there's enough product on that spoolie to mold those brows down onto the skin. And we're just going to do an up and over motion. I like to use my fingers to press those brow hairs down. When I'm doing this step, I just make sure that the product is not clumped up. I'm smoothing that product in, and that it's not too much product. So if it's too much product, go ahead and use your spoolie just to wipe it off, or you can use a wet sponge just to clean it up. So I'm going to do an up and over motion, just molding those hairs down. And then we're going to clean up the top. So we're not doing brows first, we're just molding those hairs down. So when you get back to the hairs, you can definitely fill it in without it being dewy or gooky piling up on your brush. Concealer underneath the brows, we will be using MAC 24 Hour Studio Fix Concealer. And this is the shade NC45. And I'm using Color de Jour brush 107 to apply. And we are going to start right at the arch. And then we're just going to follow the rest of the brow. Remember this step, you want to make sure that the line is really clean as you carry the concealer throughout, because this is going to be your guide when you finally go back to the brows. I don't like to start off with brows because I feel like that makes the brows look harsh. Whenever you start off with a step, like say if you start off with foundation, I feel like that's where your focus is going to be. Whenever you start off with eyes, that's where your focus is going to be. And I want my focus to be on the eyes today. And of course skin, we always want flawless skin, right? But I want to make sure that my skin is flawless, so that's why I'm starting on eyes. I know it's a dramatic eye and I don't want a lot of fallout, I don't want to have to clean up a lot, and I don't want to do a lot of baking either. So that's why we're not doing skin first today. Then we're going to do the other side. I do like to angle the brows out a little bit, so make sure you don't drop that concealer too far down, just kind of angle it out. And then we're just going to lay that brush flat to get that product on. And this is the beauty of not doing skin first when you are doing a dramatic eye, because you can bring that concealer out. You have space to blend out. Next, I'm picking up Color de Jour brush 123, and I'm going into that same concealer, and I'm just going to pat it onto the lid. And this is going to be my base for eyeshadow. Pick up a little bit more because I do want a nice coverage on the lid. If I want my eyeshadow to be intense, I'm going to make sure I don't see too much skin through that concealer. I do have a sponge here, so I'm just going to clean up the edges. If I carried it out too far, it's just easy to pick up the sponge and buff out the edges. For the eyeshadow application, we're going to start off with one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes. This is from Dose of Colors, and it's called Sassy Siennas. And we are going to pick up the shade Stay Sassy, which is this very deep shade here. I'm using Color de Jour brush 123, and we're just going to start applying it in the outer corner. So just go ahead and just pack it on in the outer corner. So we're not doing any type of blending right now, we're just packing it. And then because we are starting with eyeshadow, if you are working on someone, you can definitely kind of pull it up to stretch that skin a little bit. And then we're going to carry it in this way, and then we're going to pack it onto the inner corners. Pick up Color de Jour brush 112, and we're just going to buff out the edges. Whenever you're wanting to build up the intensity of the eyeshadow, it's just a stippling motion. And then when you are moving in a circular direction or in circular motion, that's diffusing the shade. So it's blending it out, making it look seamless. We're going to do the other eye. We're going to start on the outer corner. And if more intense, I'm just going to pick up that same brush 112 and stipple on the outer corner and into the crease. Do the same thing to the other side. Don't worry about the edges right now because we're going to use another shade to blend it out. From that same palette, we're going to be using the shade Brassy, which is a nice reddish brown, and we're going to use Color de Jour brush 112, and we're going to apply that shade on the edge of the Stay Sassy. So as I am working the shade in, I'm also diffusing it outward to give more of an almond shape to the eyes. And then with that same Brassy shade, you can just carry it to the front of the brows. I'm going to pick up a clean Color de Jour brush 123, and I'm just going to blend it into that highlight underneath the brow and diffuse that shade out that we just applied so it's not too heavy. So next we'll be going in with P. Louise Base, and this is the shade 4. Keep in mind you can also use your concealer, but I really love the shade of this P. Louise and the texture. And we are going to apply it right in the center of the lid. I'm using that same brush that I use for concealer, and this is Color de Jour brush 107. Picking up a little bit of that P. Louise. I'm just going to drag down the center. Side. And once I get most of the product off of the brush, then I can start blending into the shade that I've already applied. Pick up that Color de Jour brush 112 just to blend out the edges of that P. Louise base that I just applied. On the center of the lid, I'm going to use my Sigma Enchanted palette, and we are going to pick up this nice, beautiful Cosmos shade here. I'm using that same Color de Jour 107 brush, and I'm just going to tap down the center. shade here. I'm going to apply it right on top. And you can build it up to whatever intensity that you would like. Gives a nice minty shade. And I really love this palette because of all the beautiful shimmers that it has in it, and they are super pigmented. Next, we're going to pick up Color de Jour brush 112 again, and I'm going to go in with Evergreen. And I'm just going to blend the edges of what we just applied in the center into the brown. To blend everything together, I'm just going to go back in with the Brassy and the Stay Sassy shade. Go in with 2 to 3 layers of the shade as you're blending out. And then we're going to go back in with Stay Sassy, which is the darker brown. And we're just going to apply it back in the corner. Just to make sure we don't lose that shade in the center, I'm just going to go back in with the Metamorphosis, which is that lighter greenish, it's like a greenish bluish iridescent shade, just to make sure that that shade pops right in the center. Whenever I am trying to figure out where I should stop in the crease, I just make sure I feel for the edge of the eyeball. And then you can buff out the edges. So the base of the under eye, I'm going to use KVD Lemmy Green, and we're going to go on top of this base with the eyeshadows we just applied. So I'm using Color de Jour brush 105, and on the bottom we're just going to apply this, and I really love this shade. It really makes the look pop. We're using this as a primer. And I'm going to clean off the brush a little bit. And I'm going to go back in. This is called Evergreen from that Sigma palette. And we are going to of the Lemmy Green from KVD that we just applied. Then I'm going to apply it to the inner corners. Don't worry about any fallout, we are good there because if we need to, we can clean it up. Cleaning off the brush a little bit, and I'm using that same brush to pick up this shade here, which is Cosmos. And then I'm just going to tap in the center of that evergreen. Then I'm going to pick up the Metamorphosis again and apply it right on top. So I just want to make it more chocolate, so I am going to go back in with these two shades and do a little bit more blending. So let's pick up Brassy first, and this is Color de Jour brush 123. And we're just going to lightly feather that color on, and it's going to really keep the intensity of that chocolate shade. Before we do eyeliner, I'm just going to clean up under the eye. And I'm using just a makeup remover. Angular and lifted, so that is why I'm angling the eyeshadow upward. And I know we applied primer underneath the eyes, and it's okay if this happens, if you have a lot of fallout, to go back and just apply a little bit more. Because I would rather this happen versus it falling on my foundation application. For eyeliner, I'm going to use Inglot number 77 and Color de Jour brush 104. When you are picking up the eyeliner, you're going to apply it first, apply it to your palette. A lot of times I like to use the back of my hands because I like for the product to be warmed up first before going into the skin. And then whenever I'm applying it, I make sure the product is evenly distributed on both sides of the brush. I'm going to start on the bottom waterline first, so look up for me. And whenever you are working closer to the inner corner, the longer end of the brush should face the inner corner. As you are working on the outer corner, the longer end of the brush should face the outer corner. And it's okay to bring that eyeliner down to the lash line. So not keeping it right on the waterline, bringing it down to the lash line. And then we are going to do a wings. Only the longer part of the brush is touching the skin as I'm creating the wing. And then I'm just going to carry it and keep that wing pretty much on the outer corner. That is where my volume is, on the outer corner. The longer end of the brush should be facing that inner corner as you're working on it. Now we're going to clean it up. So for lashes, I'm going to be using the TRS, the True Style lashes in the style 904. I really love these lashes, and I purchased pretty much many of the numbers, the 904s, 905s, 902s, 908s. And with lashes, you always want to make sure that you clip the ends of them, and most times I'm clipping the longer end of them to fit to the eye. To apply the lashes, I'm going to use Duo Glue Brush On Adhesive with Vitamins. I really like this glue, especially for my clients that are allergic to latex. It doesn't have as much latex in it as some of the other glues. So I just brush it on to the top of the lash. The area that I'm aiming for is right on the top of the lashes, not the side of the strip, it's the top. And it dries pretty quickly, but you want to make sure it's not liquidy before you apply it, because it will slip and slide all over the place. And we're just going to apply it. And if I feel like the lashes need a little bit more volume, I do like to stack. When I'm applying the lashes, I do lift the end, the corner of the lash up a little bit just to give the eyes more of an angular shape, and then I make sure I pull this down right against that lash line. And as it's drying, I'm going to just manipulate the lashes up a little bit. Then I'm going to apply the other side. So remember, the inner corner should be up against the lash line, and then the outer corner you can angle it up a little bit. So as it's drying, we're going to manipulate them up because I like volume. I like to see the lashes, especially in pictures. If you notice, sometimes you have a dramatic lash and then you take pictures and you really can't see them, it's because they're sitting out straight. So you want to make sure that the lashes are angled up. I do want a little bit more volume, so I'm actually going to take that same style and clip it in half to apply it just to the end of the lashes. We are going to put the end of that strip of the 904s at the very end. You want to make sure that the lashes are blended together where you can't see that second strip. And when you apply it, you want to make sure you start manipulating the lash upward. And so to my eyes, I cannot see that there's two different strips. And sometimes it helps to go back in with eyeliner, and that will clean up the strips to where you can't see the differentiation between the first strip and that second strip. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side. We're just going to place it right on that outer corner. Again, making sure it blends nicely into that other strip. Once that glue is not so loose and more tacky, we're going to start manipulating it up. And that's going to give your lash volumes where you don't have to curl the lashes. I'm not a big fan of curling the lashes. Sometimes it just hurts the clients if you're grabbing the lashes wrong. Or sometimes I'll give the curler to the client. But I feel like this method just keeps you from having to do that. Now that we have our lashes on, we are going to move on